Ji-eun Park sat alone by the window of her small apartment, watching the stars through her telescope. The engineering student had always been fascinated by space, spending countless hours studying the night sky when others were sleeping. Tonight felt different somehow. The stars seemed brighter, more active than it happened. A flash of light streaked across the sky, too controlled to be a meteor. Ji-eun adjusted her telescope, her heart racing as the light grew larger. This was no natural phenomenon. The light became a ship, its metallic surface catching the moonlight. As it descended toward the empty field behind her apartment building, Ji-eun grabbed her phone and jacket, rushing outside without thinking twice. By the time she reached the field, a crowd had gathered at a safe distance. Police officers tried to keep people back, but Ji-eun slipped through unnoticed, drawn forward by an overwhelming curiosity that outweighed her fear. The ship hummed softly, its surface smooth and seamless without any visible doors or windows. As Ji-eun approached, a section of the hull suddenly became transparent, revealing tall, slender figures moving inside. "Please step back," a police officer called, but his words were cut short as a beam of light shot from the ship, expanding into a wide circle on the ground. From this circle, 3 beings emerged, walking on air as they descended. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. Their eyes were large, with pupils that adjusted like camera lenses. They wore no visible technology, yet small lights pulsed beneath their skin. "We represent the Galactic Confederation," one said, its voice somehow in perfect Korean, though its mouth barely moved. "We come to evaluate." Panic erupted. People ran screaming. Police officers drew weapons. But Ji-eun remained still, studying, the visitors with intense focus. The aliens raised their hands and a wave of energy pulsed outward. Everyone except Ji-eun froze in place, suspended in mid-motion. "Curious," said the tallest alien, looking directly at her. "You were unaffected." Ji-eun swallowed hard but kept her voice steady. "Why am I different?" "Brain patterns," another alien replied. "Yours resonates at a frequency similar to our own. Rare among your kind." The aliens introduced themselves as Commander Taln, Officer Lith, and Scientist Nari. They explained that the Galactic Confederation assessed developing worlds to determine their readiness for contact. "Most species respond with fear or aggression," Nari said. "Few show curiosity first." More ships appeared in the sky, and soon teams of aliens were collecting samples from plants, soil, and air. Ji-eun followed them, asking questions that seemed to surprise and impress them. "Your understanding of quantum principles is advanced for your species," Tal noted as Ji-eun correctly guessed the function of a device they used to analyze soil composition. Hours passed. The aliens prepared to leave, but before boarding their ship, Tal approached Ji-eun. "The Confederation requires representatives from each potential member world," he said. "Would you come with us? You would not be alone. Others like you are being selected across your planet." Ji-eun thought of her small apartment, her unfinished degree, her quiet life of looking at stars through a telescope. Then she looked at the ship that could take her among those same stars. "Will I return?" she asked. "That will depend on you," Taln replied honestly. Ji-eun nodded. "I'll come." Inside the ship, she found 20 other humans, all looking frightened and confused. Unlike them, Ji-eun immediately began examining the ship's interior, running her hands along the walls that seemed to pulse with life. "The human shows unusual adaptability," Officer Leith said, watching her. A wall transformed into a window, showing Earth growing smaller as they ascended. The other humans gasped or cried, but Ji-eun pressed her hand against the transparent surface, saying a silent goodbye to her home. The ship accelerated, stars blurring around them as they approached a massive structure in space. The space station was enormous, housing representatives from hundreds of worlds under evaluation. "Welcome to Assessment Station Orion," announced Commander Taln. "Here you will demonstrate your species' potential." As they docked, Ji-eun noticed alien writing on a control panel. Somehow the symbols seemed almost familiar, as if they followed patterns she could understand. "The testing begins tomorrow," Talon informed the humans. "Rest now." But as the others slept in their assigned quarters, Ji-eun stayed awake, watching, through her room's viewport as ships of various designs arrived and departed. In each one she began to see similarities, patterns in their movement and function. By morning, when the first training session was scheduled to begin, Ji-eun had already started to understand the logic behind alien technology. What she didn't realize was how impossible this was supposed to be. Ji-eun stood with the other human candidates in a large circular room aboard the assessment station. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and strange symbols floated in the air. 7 other species were gathered in small groups, some with tentacles, others with multiple limbs, and a few that looked almost human except for their unusual skin colors. Senior evaluator Jun-ho stepped into the center of the room. He was taller than most humans, with 6 eyes that blinked in a rolling pattern and skin that shifted colors, slightly as he moved. Despite his alien appearance, his voice was gentle. "Welcome to your first day of assessment," he said. "The Confederation evaluates all pre-FTL species based on their ability to adapt to galactic technology. Today we begin with basic ship operations." Holographic displays appeared in front of each group, showing the interior of a small spacecraft. Ji-eun studied the strange controls with intense interest, noticing how they seemed to respond to the thoughts and movements of the instructors demonstrating them. "Most species require 3 months to master basic navigation," Jun-ho explained. "Some take a full year. There is no shame in learning slowly." The candidates were divided into training groups. Ji-eun found herself with 3 other humans and 4 beings from a planet called Mira, who had skin that looked like polished stone. Their instructor, Subin, had 4 arms and moved with graceful precision. "Today we learn only how to activate the primary systems," she said. "Nothing more." The training module was a simple simulator, a room that projected the interior of a ship around them. The control panel was a curved surface without buttons, covered in shifting light patterns. "Place your hands here," Subin demonstrated. "Focus your thoughts on connection." The other candidates struggled, some barely able to make the panel respond. But when Ji-eun placed her hands on the surface, it immediately glowed brighter, the patterns reorganizing themselves under her touch. "Interesting," Subin said, watching closely. "Try thinking about movement." Ji-eun closed her eyes, imagining the ship rising slowly. The simulator hummed and the other candidates gasped. When she opened her eyes, the view screen showed they were hovering above the virtual landing pad. "That's enough for today," Subin said quickly, shutting down the simulator. "We will continue tomorrow." That night, Ji-eun couldn't sleep. The ship's controls kept appearing in her mind, the patterns familiar somehow, like the video games she had played as a child. She slipped out of her quarters and wandered through the quiet corridors until she found the training area. It was empty and dark. Ji-eun touched a panel by the door, and to her surprise it responded, opening the simulator room. She stepped inside, and the ship's interior formed around her. "Just a few minutes," she whispered to herself, placing her hands on the control panel. The system activated immediately, responding to her touch as if greeting an old friend. Ji-eun explored the interface, discovering that certain thought patterns activated different systems. When she imagined music, the ship's environmental controls responded. When she thought of speed, the engine systems engaged. Hours passed as Ji-eun tested different commands, losing track of time. She discovered she could feel the ship's systems as if they were extensions of her own body. It made perfect sense to her, though she couldn't explain why. "What are you doing?" a voice suddenly asked. Ji-eun jumped, turning to see the tall figure of evaluator Jun-ho in the doorway. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I couldn't sleep and I wanted to practice." Jun-ho moved closer, his 6 eyes focusing on the active controls. "These are advanced navigation protocols. They aren't taught until the 3rd week." "They just made sense to me," Ji-eun explained. Jun-ho studied her carefully, then touched a communication device on his wrist. "Senior Evaluator Minho, please. Come to Simulator Room 4. I found something unusual." Soon, several evaluators were watching as Ji-eun demonstrated what she had learned. They spoke quickly in their own language, clearly surprised. "How is this possible?" Minho finally asked her. "Your species has barely managed space travel within your own solar system." Jiyeon shrugged. "The patterns feel familiar. It's like the ship is talking to me, and I just answer back." The evaluators exchanged glances. "Tomorrow you will join the advanced class," Minho decided. This has never happened before with a new species. As dawn approached, word spread through the station about the human who had mastered in hours what took others months. Not everyone was pleased. The Miran candidates watched Jiyeon with suspicious eyes, especially Hawk, their leader. "Humans must have stolen technology," he whispered to his companions. "They cannot be trusted." But Jiyeon paid no attention to the whispers. As she returned to her quarters, she felt a strange connection to the station itself, as if the vast structure was somehow alive and welcoming her presence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time since leaving Earth, Jiyeon felt she had found her place among the stars. Jiyeon entered the advanced training room nervously. Instead of other beginners, she found herself surrounded by aliens who had been training for months. They stared at her with various expressions of curiosity and doubt. The room contained actual ship controls rather than simulations, connected to real engines in a separate chamber. Instructor Do-hyun stood at the front, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. His skin shimmered with a metallic blue tone, and his large eyes narrowed when Jiyeon walked in. "So this is the human prodigy," he said, his voice deep and skeptical. "Let's see what you can do." One of the students, a tall being named Hawk, with skin like polished granite, laughed softly. "Humans barely have space stations. How can she understand Confederation technology?" Do-hyun gestured Jiyeon forward. "Show us the basic docking sequence." Jiyeon approached the control panel, which was much more complex than the simulator she had practiced on. Colorful lights danced across its surface in complicated patterns. She placed her hands on the panel, and immediately the lights responded, glowing brighter. The room fell silent as Jiyeon closed her eyes. In her mind, she pictured the ship moving slowly toward a docking port, aligning perfectly before connecting. Her fingers moved across the panel without hesitation. On the large screen above them, a virtual ship executed a flawless docking maneuver. Do-hyun's eyes widened. That was perfect. He touched a button on his wrist device. "Now try compensating for quantum drift." Jiyeon didn't know what quantum drift meant, but somehow her hands knew what to do. The panel beneath her fingers shifted, and she adjusted, accordingly, feeling rather than seeing what needed to change. "Impossible," whispered Do-hyun. "We haven't taught her this yet." Hawk stepped forward angrily. "She must be cheating. Someone must be helping her." Do-hyun looked thoughtful. "There's one way to find out." He walked to a locked cabinet and removed a small silver device. "This is a neural monitor. It will show us exactly how her brain is processing information." Jiyeon nodded her agreement, and Do-hyun placed the device gently against her temple. It adhered to her skin without pain. Immediately, a holographic display appeared above her head, showing colorful patterns of her brain activity. "Now," said Do-hyun, "I am going to program a test that no beginning student could possibly pass. If you are receiving outside help, we will know." He activated a complex simulation, a journey through a nebula with shifting gravity fields and unpredictable energy storms. Even the advanced students looked worried. Jiyeon took a deep breath and placed her hands on the controls again. This time was different. The challenge was much harder, but somehow it made more sense to her. The patterns became like music, and she was simply following the melody. Her fingers danced across the panel, making adjustments before problems even appeared on the screen. The neural monitor above her head showed unusual activity. Her brain was processing information in ways the Confederation had never seen before. When the simulation ended, the display showed a perfect score. The room remained completely silent for several seconds. "How?" Do-hyun finally asked. "How did you do that?" Jiyeon tried to explain. "It's like playing music. I feel the patterns. The ship tells me what it needs, and I respond. Senior Evaluator Jun Ho had entered the room during the test. Now he stepped forward, examining the neural monitor with great interest. Call the science division, he said to Do-hyun. Human brains appear to process technology in a completely different way than we expected. Hawk was not satisfied. Give her a real test, not a simulation. Put her in an actual ship. Jun-ho looked concerned. That would violate all protocols. No candidate flies a real vessel until at least the 3rd month of training. I'll do it, Ji-eun said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. If that's what it takes to prove I'm not cheating. A heated discussion followed among the instructors. Finally, Jun-ho nodded. Tomorrow you will fly a training vessel within the station's protective field. If you succeed, you will be officially recognized as an accelerated student. As the class ended, Ji-eun gathered her things to leave. Hawk blocked her path. My people have studied Confederation technology for decades, he said, his voice low and threatening. We are naturally suited to it. Humans are primitive and emotional. You cannot possibly be better than us. Ji-eun met his gaze calmly. Maybe being different is an advantage, not a weakness. Later that evening, scientists came to Ji-eun's quarters to study her. They took scans of her brain while she interacted with various technologies. They asked her endless questions about Earth and human development. Fascinating, said the lead scientist, Tae-hee. Human brains evolved in a chaotic environment with constant adaptation. Your neural pathways form connections our species take years to develop. As Ji-eun prepared for sleep, a message appeared on her room's communication panel. It was from Do-hyun. Prepare carefully for tomorrow. Many will be watching, some hoping you fail. Ji-eun wasn't afraid. For the first time in her life, she felt she was exactly where she belonged. Trial by Fire Jang Wei stood at the edge of the training field, watching the other recruits. His body ached from yesterday's training. This was his 4th week at the HFY Academy, and today's challenge would test everything he had learned. The instructor blew a whistle. Today's trial is simple, she announced. Cross the field, retrieve the flag, and return. Those who succeed continue training. Those who fail, go home. Wei looked at the field. It wasn't just any field. Fire jets erupted from hidden pipes. Mechanical arms swung heavy bags that could knock a person down. Rope traps waited to snare unwary feet. This is impossible, whispered Lee, the recruit beside him. Wei said nothing. He watched the first recruit step onto the field. The young man moved quickly at first, dodging the first fire jet. But he didn't see the mechanical arm. It hit him hard, sending him sprawling. When he tried to stand, a rope trap caught his ankle. The instructor blew her whistle. He had failed. One by one, recruits tried and failed. Some got farther than others, but none reached the flag. Then it was Wei's turn. He took a deep breath and studied the field one more time. He noticed patterns in the fire jets. They erupted every 10 seconds. The mechanical arms moved in circles. The rope traps were hidden under slight mounds in the dirt. Wei stepped onto the field. He moved slowly, counting in his head. When he reached 8, he stopped. A fire jet erupted in front of him. He waited for it to die down, then moved forward. A mechanical arm swung toward him. Instead of running, he dropped to the ground. The arm passed over him. He crawled forward, keeping his eyes on the dirt, looking for the small mounds that would reveal rope traps. Halfway across the field, Wei stood up. He was sweating now, not just from the heat of the fire jets, but from concentration. He dodged another mechanical arm by pressing himself against a post. The arm missed him by inches. 3/4 across the field, Wei almost stepped on a rope trap. He saw the mound at the last second and jumped over it. The jump put him in the path of a fire jet. Heat scorched his arm as he rolled away. Finally, he reached the flag. He grabbed it from its stand and turned to go back. The return journey would be even harder. Now he had to protect the flag as well as himself. Wei retraced his steps carefully. He used the flag to test the ground ahead of him for traps. When a mechanical arm swung at him, he used the flagpole to deflect it. A fire jet erupted directly in his path. There was no way around it. Wei wrapped the flag around his hand to protect it and ran through the flames. His clothes smoked, but he kept moving. Near the edge of the field, Wei's foot caught in a rope trap he hadn't seen. He fell forward. The flag flew from his hand, landing just beyond the field's edge. Wei struggled with the rope as a mechanical arm swung toward him. He couldn't free himself in time. The arm was going to hit him. At the last second, Wei twisted his body. The arm struck his shoulder instead of his head. Pain shot through him, but he used the momentum from the hit to pull against the rope. It snapped. Wei crawled the last few feet, reaching for the flag. His fingers closed around it just as another fire jet erupted behind him. He pulled himself across the boundary line, flag clutched to his chest. The instructor blew her whistle. "We have a winner," she announced. The other recruits stared in silence. Then Lee started clapping. Others joined in. Wei sat on the ground, catching his breath. His arm was burned, his shoulder bruised, but he had done it. He had passed the trial by fire. The instructor knelt beside him. "That was impressive," she said. "Most recruits try to run through as fast as possible. You took your time. You observed. You adapted." Wei nodded, too tired to speak. "Rest today," she said. "Tomorrow, your real training begins." As Wei looked back at the field he had just conquered, he knew this was just the beginning. Harder challenges lay ahead. But for now, he had earned his place. He had proven himself worthy. Jiang Wei stood at the window of the space station, looking down at Earth. 3 years had passed since his trial by fire at the Academy. Now he was part of humanity's most important mission. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Commander Chen, joining him at the window. Wei nodded. "Hard to believe we almost destroyed it." The climate wars had nearly ended human civilization. Countries had fought over the last clean water and farmable land. Billions had died. But then something unexpected happened, the arrival of the visitors. Wei remembered the day clearly. He had been training with his unit when the sky filled with light. Ships like silver clouds appeared over every major city. At first, people panicked. Some nations launched missiles, but the weapons dissolved before reaching their targets. The visitors came in peace. They were travelers from a distant star system who had been watching Earth for centuries. They had seen humanity's struggle and decided to intervene before humans wiped themselves out. "Report says the new atmospheric processors are working well," said Commander Chen. "Australia is seeing rainfall for the first time in 15 years. The visitors had brought technology beyond human understanding. Machines that could clean the air and oceans, energy sources that required no fuel, medical advances that cured diseases thought incurable. But they hadn't simply given these gifts. They made it clear humanity needed to earn them by proving they could work together and be responsible caretakers of their planet. That's where Wei and the others came in. The orbital guard was formed from the best soldiers and scientists from every nation. Their job was to monitor Earth's recovery and maintain the visitors' technology until humans could understand and build it themselves. "Time for the meeting," said Commander Chen. Wei followed her to the conference room. Representatives from the Earth Council appeared on screens around the table. Once bitter enemies, these nations now work together under the visitors' guidance. "The Ocean Revival Project is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported a scientist from Japan. "Fish populations are returning to the North Pacific. The Sahara reforestation has reached 30% coverage," added a representative from Nigeria. Wei listened as reports came in from around the world. The changes were happening faster than anyone had predicted. Earth was healing. After the meeting, Wei returned to his duties. His job was to monitor the atmospheric processors. The machines looked simple, silver spheres that floated above major pollution sources, but their technology was far beyond human science. As Wei checked the readings, an alarm sounded. A processor over the old industrial zone in China was showing unusual patterns. "What's happening?" asked Commander Chen, rushing to his station. "Energy fluctuations," said Wei. "Something's interfering with the processor." They quickly discovered the cause. A group on Earth was trying to capture a processor. They believed the visitors' technology should belong to humans alone. "We need to stop them," said Wei. "If they damage the processor, it could set back the whole region's recovery." Commander Chen nodded. "Take a shuttle. This is exactly why we're here." Within an hour, Wei was piloting a shuttle back to Earth. As he approached the industrial zone, he saw the problem. A group had set up equipment around the processor, trying to pull it down with energy nets. Wei landed the shuttle and stepped out. The group turned to face him, weapons ready. "Stop what you're doing," Wei called out. "The processors aren't ours to take." "They should be," shouted their leader. "Why should we depend on aliens? Humanity should control its own destiny." "And we will," said Wei, walking closer despite the weapons pointed at him. "The visitors aren't keeping the technology from us forever. They're teaching us, waiting until we're ready." "Ready by whose standards?" demanded the leader. "By the standards of a species that survived millions of years longer than us," Wei answered. "They've seen other civilizations destroy themselves with technology they weren't mature enough to handle." Wei pointed to the sky, now blue instead of the brown haze he remembered from childhood. "Look around you. For the first time in generations, our world is healing. We have food for everyone. No more wars over resources." The leader hesitated, lowering his weapon slightly. "Humanity's new role isn't to conquer," Wei continued. "It's to learn, to grow, to become worthy of joining a community of worlds." Slowly, the group lowered their weapons. The leader stepped forward. "How long will it take?" he asked. "I don't know," Wei admitted. "But I do know this. The future belongs to those who build, not those who take." As the group disbanded and Wei secured the processor, he looked up at the space station, a tiny dot of light among the stars. Humanity had a new role in the universe. They were students now, with much to learn. But one day, Wei believed, they would become teachers themselves.